الصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل ربي زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن تجتنبوا كبائر ما تنهون عنه نكفر عنكم سيئاتكم وندخلكم مدخلا كريما. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after mentioning various important injunctions, rules and regulations, ahkam sharia, and various crimes that need to be abstained from. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, in tajtanibu kaba'ira ma tunhawna anhu. If you will abstain and remain aloof from the major things, or the great things, meaning the great sins or the major sins, ma tunhawna anhu, which you have been forbidden from, nukaffir ankum sayyatikum, we will expiate your sins, or we will remove them, we will wipe them out, as it were. وَنُدْخِلُكُمْ مُدْخَلًا كَرِيمًا, and will enter you into a very honorable and noble abode and entrance, meaning the paradise. So here, the mention of major sins is made, and if major sins are abstained from, then the minor sins, the sayyat, minor sins or small issues, of course, any sin of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a small issue. Therefore, some of the ulama have mentioned that all disobedience of Allah is a major issue, so it's a major sin, everything. However, here it infers that there are really much greater sins and some which are of lesser impact. And we mentioned earlier that probably the greatest of all sins are those sins which impact others and have the impact on social. And the wider the impact, the more serious and magnanimous it would be. As for the minor sins, it's mentioned in hadith that so many different righteous actions actually expiate those sins. Like wudu, when we offer wudu, washing of the hands and washing of the mouth, and in the washing of each of these portions of the body, the sins that are connected to those portions are also washed away. When we offer salat, juma ila juma, sadaqah, and so forth and so on, so all of the righteous deeds are also means of expiation of sins. However, these major sins, the big ones that are mentioned here, kaba'ir, so that requires tawbah. So we've also mentioned probably in other instances that there are two things that are required for sins. One is istighfar and the other is tawbah. Istighfar meaning asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to excuse us for the past. And tawbah has to do with the future. So as for the future, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq not to perform these things in the future. So that requires that, number one, we stop doing it. Number two, that we have sorrow and remorse for doing it. And thirdly, we have determination that we're not going to return to sin. And if the sin has to do with the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's slaves, then those rights have to be returned. If we owe somebody money, if there's someone has killed someone, then he has to surrender himself to the awliya of that maqtul, the family of that the person who he has killed, etc. So this is totally necessary. So major sins require tawbah, istighfar and tawbah. The minor sins are excused through the various righteous actions that we do. And therefore, the Muslim is continuously, as Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam gave us the very prolific example, that the Muslim, as he is constant in his salat, remembrance of Allah, he's also consistent in istighfar, continuously asking excuse. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions that he asks istighfar and tawbah 100 times daily, and he's without sin. So what about us? Now, as regarding a detailed description and what falls into the category of the major sins, inshallah, tomorrow we'll